In a small red soil village in southeastern Nigeria, the mornings always began with the sound of pestles pounding yam and the smell of smoke rising from clay kitchens. In one corner of the village lived Amaka, a young woman with gentle eyes and quick hands. She had married Chidi, a kind palm wine tapper, only 1 year earlier. Amaka's flaw was simple but dangerous. She thought that love meant enduring everything in silence. She believed that a good wife never complained, never talked back, and never defended herself. Next door in the main house lived her mother-in-law, Mama Nkem. Mama Nkem was known across the village as a woman with sharp words and a sharper tongue. Her wrapper was always the brightest, her head tie the highest, and her nose slightly raised, as if the whole world smelled less than she did. "She's not good enough for my son," she often said about Amaka. "She is too quiet. Quiet women hide secrets." Whenever Amaka swept the compound, Mama Incan would follow behind, pointing at invisible specks of dust. "You call this clean? When I was a new wife, I polished the floor until the moon could see its face in it." If Amaka cooked, Mama Incan tasted the food and clicked her tongue loudly. "Too much salt. You want to kill us. In my days, if a wife cooked like this, they would send her back home the same day." Chidi tried to protect his wife, but he was often away tapping palm trees or selling wine at the market. When he was gone, the compound became a battlefield that only Amaka could see. One hot afternoon, as the sun sat like a hot coal in the sky, Mama Nkem called Amaka. "Come here, you slow tortoise," she shouted from her veranda. Amaka hurried over, wiping her damp hands on her wrapper. "Yes, Mama," she answered softly. "I am going to the women's meeting at the square," Mama Nkem said, straightening her head tie. "Before I return, you must fetch water from the far stream, wash all the clothes, weed the back garden, and roast ground nuts for my friends." She rattled off the list like a song. Amaka's heart sank. The far stream was no small journey, and her legs already ached from the morning chores. Still she lowered her eyes. "Yes, Mama, I will do it." As Mama Nkem watched her walk away with the heavy clay pot, she smirked. "Let her suffer," she muttered under her breath. "Maybe she will run away, and I can choose a better wife for my son." That evening, when Chidi returned, Mama Nkem met him at the gate. "Ah, my son, you have come," she said sweetly, her voice like honey hiding a thorn. "Your wife is lazy. I sent her to fetch water since afternoon, and she's only just returning. You must talk to her." Chidi frowned, confused, but Amaka only smiled weakly and said nothing. That was her way. She swallowed pain like bitter medicine and hid it in her chest. As night fell and crickets began to sing, Amaka lay awake on her raffia mat, staring at the cracked ceiling. "Maybe Mama is right," she thought. "Maybe I am not good enough. Maybe I just need to try harder and keep quiet." Outside, the moon climbed higher, as if watching everything silently and waiting, because in that village, every action was a seed, and soon the seeds Mama Nkem planted with her cruelty would begin to grow. The very next week, the village buzzed with news. The new yam festival was coming. It was the one time in the year when every family brought their best yams, the best soup, and their best stories to the village square. There would be drumming, dancing, and the elders would give blessings for the next farming season. But this year, the oldest elder, Papa Okechukwu, added something new. He stood in the middle of the marketplace, his grey beard touching his chest, and announced, "This year, the spirits have whispered to us. Every household will host a stranger during the festival. How you treat this stranger will decide what kind of year you will have, full of blessings or full of trouble." People gasped and whispered among themselves, "A stranger! A test!" Mama Nkem folded her hands and laughed loudly. "Let them bring the stranger to my house," she boasted. "We are known for greatness. My husband was a chief. My son is strong. Our house is blessed already." Amaka, standing quietly beside her, just looked down and said nothing. But inside, her curiosity stirred. Could this stranger be real? Was it truly a test from the spirits, or just an elder's story to make people behave? Days passed, and the festival drew closer. One evening, as the sky turned orange and purple, Amaka went to the stream alone. Her feet knew the path so well that they almost walked without her mind. Her thoughts were heavy. As she bent to fill her clay pot, she noticed an old woman sitting on a rock nearby. The woman's wrapper was faded, and her head tie was simple. Her feet were dusty, as if she had walked a long way. A small calabash bowl rested beside her. Amaka felt a tug of concern. "Mama, are you okay?" she asked gently. The old woman looked up slowly. Her eyes were sharp and clear, like those of a hawk. "I am only tired, my child," she replied. "These legs have walked many villages. But tell me, why does your heart look heavier than my calabash?" Amaka blinked in surprise. "My heart?" "Yes," the old woman said. "Your eyes are sad, your shoulders bent. Pain is sitting on your back, like a stubborn goat." The words were strange, and yet true. Something inside Amaka cracked a little. She sat beside the old woman on the rock and spoke softly. "I am married into a good family," she began. "My husband is kind, but his mother, she does not like me. No matter what I do, it is never enough. She insults me. She makes me work until my bones cry. And I say nothing. I just try to be a good wife." The old woman nodded slowly, listening like a still river. "And why do you think a good wife must be a silent one?" she asked. Amaka hesitated. "Because that is what I was told, that women who speak are troublesome, that patience means swallowing every word." The old woman smiled slightly, but there was sadness in her eyes. "My child," she said, "patience is not the same as silence. A calabash that holds too much water will crack. A woman who holds too much pain will one day pour it in the wrong place." She reached for the small calabash beside her and held it out. Inside were two smaller calabashes, one painted white, the other black. "In many stories," she said, "people are given a choice between blessing and curse, between kindness and cruelty, between truth and pride. Today I give you this test. Take these two calabashes home. On the day of the festival, when your stranger comes, pour food into them. One for your mother-in-law, one for the stranger. But remember this, whatever heart you pour into the bowl will return to you before the next full moon." Amaka frowned slightly. The words sounded like a riddle. "What do you mean, Mama?" The old woman just smiled. "Fables do not explain themselves, child. You must live them." She pressed the calabashes into Amaka's hands and stood up. Only then did Amaka notice that, although the woman looked old, she rose with the strength of a young person. "Who are you?" Amaka asked softly. "Just a traveller," the woman replied. "But listen to one more thing. If you wish for a new life, you must stop feeding your fear and start feeding your courage." Before Amaka could say anything more, a small breeze moved across the water. For a brief moment, the woman's eyes shone like moonlight on the river. Then, as Amaka looked down at the calabashes and back up again, the rock was empty. The old woman was gone. Amaka's heart raced. She looked around. No footsteps, no sound, only the rustle of leaves. Was she a spirit? She whispered. She carried the two calabashes home, her mind full of questions. Curiosity wrapped itself tightly around her, like another wrapper. The festival day, the new yam festival, arrived with drums, flutes, and colourful wrappers swirling in the square. Children ran around with roasted corn, men carried huge tubers of yam, and women stirred pots of soup that smelled of pepper and smoked fish. In the compound, Mama Nkem shouted instructions as if she were a general in a battlefield. "Amaka, Pound the yam faster. You are pounding like an old tortoise. Add more oil to the soup, and remember, if a stranger comes, send them to me first. I am the head of this house." Amaka's heart beat fast. She had hidden the 2 calabashes in her room. Every time she passed by the door, she felt them calling her silently. Around midday, as the sun sat high and hot, there was a knock on the compound gate. "Who is there?" Mama Enkay called. A thin woman stepped in. Her wrapper was torn and her feet were dusty. She carried a small bundle on her head and a baby on her back. Her eyes looked tired, but she stood straight. "Good afternoon," she said quietly. "I am a stranger. The elders announced that strangers may be welcome today. I have walked from far. May I rest and share a meal?" Mama Enkay looked at her from head to toe and snorted. "So this is the stranger the spirits sent to my house," she said loudly, making sure the neighbours heard. "A poor woman with dust for sandals." She laughed, and some women nearby laughed with her. "Go to the next compound," Mama Enkay said, waving her hand as if chasing a fly. "My son is important. We cannot host just anyone. If the spirits wanted to bless us, they would send someone that looks like a blessing, not a problem." The stranger's eyes glistened, but she said nothing. At that moment, Amaka stepped out of the kitchen, her face damp with sweat. She saw the woman, the baby, the dust, the tired eyes, and something inside her stirred. She remembered the old woman at the stream. "Whatever heart you pour into the bowl will return to you." Amaka took a slow breath. Her fear and her habit of silence held her tongue, but her heart pushed forward. "Mama," she said carefully, "the elders said every house should host a stranger. Maybe this is our test. Let us stay. We have enough food." Mama Enkay turned on her, eyes blazing. "So now you're teaching me," she shouted. "In my own house. Because you have been here 1 year. Get back into the kitchen. You talk too much for someone who does so little." Amaka's cheeks burned with shame. The old version of her would have lowered her head and walked away, but the memory of the wise woman's eyes at the stream gave her a tiny spark of courage. She looked at the stranger and said softly, "Please follow me." Before Mama Enkay could protest, Amaka gently took the woman's arm and led her toward the small room at the back of the compound, Amaka's own room. Inside she sat the woman down on her raffia mat. "I am sorry for my mother-in-law's words," she said. "Rest here. I will bring water and food." Her heart raced, but at the same time, a strange calm began to spread inside her, like cool water on hot skin. She went to her hiding place and brought out the 2 calabashes, the white one and the black one. Her hands trembled. "One for Mama Enkay, one for the stranger," she whispered. She remembered the old woman's warning about the heart she poured into each bowl, so she closed her eyes for a moment. Into the white calabash she poured pounded yam and rich soup with the heart of kindness and respect, whispering, "May whoever eats from this bowl find comfort and peace." This she gave to the stranger. Into the black calabash she poured another portion, but this time her heart was full of all the pain, all the insults, all the hidden tears she had swallowed. Without even knowing, she whispered, "May the truth of what has been done return to the one who caused it." She set the bowls aside for serving later, not fully understanding what she had just done. When she brought the white calabash to the stranger, the woman's eyes widened. "This is too much," the woman said. "You give me your own room, your own food." "In this house," Amaka replied quietly, "love is sometimes hidden, but I will show you mine." The stranger smiled, and for a moment her tired face looked almost shining. As the afternoon turned to evening, drums echoed from the village square. People danced, laughed, and told stories. The elders moved from compound to compound, quietly observing how each family treated their stranger. In some homes, the strangers were seated at the best places and given the biggest pieces of meat. In others, they were pushed to the corner and given leftover soup. In Mama Nkem's compound, the elders arrived just as she was finishing her latest complaint about Amaka to a neighbour. "She is stubborn," Mama Nkem was saying. "I told her to send away that dusty woman, but she disobeyed me. Imagine! In my house." Papa Okechukwu stepped forward. "Where is the stranger assigned to this house?" he asked. Mama Nkem laughed nervously. "Ah, Papa, it was a mistake. We have no space. I told her to go elsewhere, but my son's wife, this foolish girl, brought her inside behind my back." The elders looked at one another. Something in their eyes was not pleased. "Call them," Papa Okechukwu said. "We will eat together." Amaka came out, the stranger beside her holding her baby. They both bowed respectfully. "Welcome, Papa. Welcome, elders," Amaka said. The 2 calabashes sat on a tray near the doorway, covered with cloth. Papa Okechukwu's sharp old eyes rested on them. "What are these?" he asked. Amaka swallowed. "Calabashes, Papa. One for my mother-in-law, one for the stranger." "And who prepared them?" he asked. "I did," Amaka said softly. Mama Nunkum rolled her eyes. "She thinks she's a great woman now," she muttered, "even giving me a special bowl as if I'm a child." Papa Okechukwu raised a hand for silence. "Then let it be so," he said. "Let each eat from the bowl prepared for them." He motioned for the cloths to be lifted. As the coverings were removed, a strange wind moved through the compound, though the air had been still before. The fire in the cooking area crackled louder, the shadows grew sharper, and for a brief second, everything felt different. The stranger was served from the white calabash. The pounded yam looked extra soft, the soup richer, the meat larger. A gentle smell rose from the dish that made even the elders inhale deeply in surprise. Mama Nkem was served from the black calabash. At first glance the food looked the same, but as it was placed in front of her, the soup began to bubble strangely, though it was no longer on the fire. The oil separated, forming shapes like tiny faces, frowning, crying, shouting. "What kind of nonsense is this?" Mama Nkem snapped. "It is just food." She took a large bite, and then it began. As the food touched her tongue, her mouth filled with the taste of every harsh word she had ever spoken, the bitterness of all her insults, the salt of all the tears Amaka had cried, the sharpness of every humiliation. It was as if she were eating her own behaviour. She coughed and spat, but the taste would not leave. "What is this?" she screamed, grabbing her throat. "Who has done this to me?" At that moment, the stranger took her first bite from the white calabash. Her eyes widened and tears rolled down her cheeks. "This," she whispered, "this tastes like comfort, like a mother's embrace, like all the kindness I never received on my journey." She looked at Amaka with deep gratitude. The elders watched in silence. Papa Okechukwu turned to Mama Nkem, whose eyes were now wide with fear. Her mouth continued to move as if chewing, though she had stopped eating. She tasted every cruel morning, every mocking afternoon, every wicked word. "You fed your pride for many years," Papa Okechukwu said slowly. "Now you're only tasting what you have cooked." He turned to Amaka. "And you," he said, "though you have been silent in your suffering, today you chose to act with courage and kindness. You gave your own room and your own food. You honoured the stranger, even when your mother-in-law rejected her." He looked at the 2 calabashes again. "Sometimes," he continued, "the spirits do not need to visit in thunder or lightning. They come in small tests and in old women at the stream." At those words, the stranger smiled quietly to herself, as if she knew something the others did not. The match is met. From that day, things began to change. For 3 days and 3 nights, Mama Nkem could not escape the taste in her mouth. Everything she ate tasted like bitterness and insult. Even ordinary water reminded her of sharp words. She grew quiet. The neighbours whispered that she had finally met her match, not in Amaka, but in something bigger than both of them, the truth of her own actions. Meanwhile, blessings began to flow toward Amaka and Chidi. Chidi's palm wine business suddenly improved. More people came to buy from him, saying they felt peaceful after visiting his stand. Amaka started a small trade selling roasted groundnuts and plantain in the market. People said her food tasted comforting, though she used the same ingredients as everyone else. One evening, as they sat outside watching the sky turn pink, Mamankem came to where Amaka was sorting groundnuts. For the first time in a long while, her head tie was simple and her voice was low. Amaka, she said, not quite meeting her eyes, I have something to say. Amaka's heart beat faster. She looked up gently. Yes, Mama. I have been unkind. Mamankem forced the words out like stones. I treated you like an enemy when you were only trying to be a wife. I poured my anger into you because I thought I was better. But I was wrong. She swallowed hard. The food that day. She shivered slightly. It tasted like my own behaviour. I could not escape it. I do not know what magic you did, but I'm tired of that taste. I do not want to be that woman anymore. Amaka looked at her for a long moment. The old version of herself might have accepted the apology silently and continued to suffer, but now she had learned something. Mama, she said softly, I don't know about magic, but I know this. Whatever we give to others is what we are really feeding ourselves. If you want peace, you must cook with kindness, not pride. To her surprise, Mamankem nodded slowly, tears shining in her eyes. Will you forgive me? She asked. Amaka took a deep breath and felt a wave of calm wash over her. I forgive you, she said, but from now on we will speak truth in this house. I will respect you, but I will also respect myself. It was a quiet sentence, but it was the strongest thing she had ever said. Above them, the evening breeze moved through the trees, carrying away the old bitterness bit by bit. In the weeks that followed, Mamankem slowly changed. She still shouted sometimes. Old habits do not vanish in a day, but she bit her tongue more often. She praised Amaka's cooking in front of guests. She even carried her own plate to the kitchen once or twice, to everyone's surprise. People in the village whispered, the wicked mother-in-law has finally met her match. But they were wrong. She had not met her match in a fight. She had met her match in a mirror, the mirror of her own actions, shown to her by the spirits, the stranger, and the quiet courage of a young wife. Moral and CTA. In the end, the lesson was simple. What you serve others is what you will one day eat. Pride makes the mouth sweet for a moment, but bitter for a lifetime. Kindness may look weak, but it has a power that even the proud cannot escape. If you had a mother-in-law like Mamankem, or if you saw someone treating another person this way, what would you do?